The fluorescent lights of D Block flickered overhead as Walter Hayes pressed his frail body against the cold concrete wall, his weathered hands trembling. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the corridor, growing louder with each deliberate step. His heart hammered against his ribcage. 70 years old, and it had never beaten this fast. Not even during his heart attack 3 years ago. "Where are you going, old man?" The voice belonged to Vince Caruso, a mountain of muscle and malice who'd made Walter's life hell for the past 6 weeks. "We ain't finished our conversation." Walter's breath came in short gasps. The hallway stretched before him like a nightmare, 50 feet of empty space between him and the safety of the common area. Behind him, Vince's shadow grew larger on the wall, a dark prophecy of violence about to unfold. "I said, where are you going?" Walter's legs, weakened by age and arthritis, refused to move fast enough. He stumbled forward, his prison-issued shoes squeaking against the polished floor. The medication bottles in his pocket rattled, his heart pills, his blood pressure medication, the small comforts that kept his failing body functioning in this unforgiving place. Vince's laugh cut through the air like broken glass. If you're enjoying this story from Behind Bars Tales, please subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of redemption, survival, and the human spirit behind prison walls. 6 weeks earlier, Walter Hayes had arrived at Millbrook Correctional Facility in upstate New York, sentenced to 15 years for embezzlement. At 70, with silver hair and kind eyes that seemed perpetually sad, he looked more like someone's grandfather than a federal criminal. And perhaps that's exactly what he was. A grandfather who'd made a terrible choice, stealing from his employer to pay for his daughter's cancer treatments when his insurance denied her claim. The judge had shown no mercy. Neither did the prison. Millbrook was a medium security facility, but medium security meant nothing when you were the oldest inmate on your block. The first day, Walter had been assigned to a cell with Tommy Rodriguez, a 35-year-old gang member covered in tattoos who'd looked at him like he was an alien species. "You serious?" Tommy had said when Walter shuffled in with his bedroll. "They putting Grandpa in here with me?" But something unexpected happened that first night. Walter, unable to sleep, had noticed Tommy crying quietly in his bunk, soft, suppressed sobs that the younger man tried desperately to hide. Walter didn't mention it. Instead, the next morning, he offered Tommy half of his breakfast. "You need it more than me," Walter had said simply. "Young man like you, still growing." Tommy had stared at him, suspicious. But he'd taken the food. A week later, when Walter's hands shook too badly to make his bed properly, Tommy had done it for him without being asked. When another inmate made a crude joke about Walter in the lunch line, Tommy had stepped forward, his presence alone silencing the mockery. "That's my cellie," Tommy had said quietly. "Show respect." Word spread slowly through D Block. The old man was different. He didn't complain. He didn't snitch. He didn't take sides in the endless prison politics that divided men into warring tribes. Marcus Johnson, a 42-year-old former teacher serving time for manslaughter, had been the second to experience Walter's unusual kindness. Marcus suffered from depression, the weight of his crime crushing him daily. He'd stopped attending the prison's education programs, stopped reading, stopped caring. Walter had noticed him sitting alone in the yard one day, staring at nothing. "Mind if an old man sits?" Walter had asked. Marcus had shrugged. They'd sat in silence for 20 minutes. Then Walter had said, "My daughter used to teach 3rd grade. She loved it. Said every child was a universe waiting to be discovered." "Used to?" Marcus had asked despite himself. "Cancer took her last year, before I could finish the trial." Walter's voice had cracked, but he'd continued. "She died thinking her father was a thief. Never got to explain I did it for her." Marcus had looked at the old man then, really looked at him, and saw his own pain reflected back. They'd talked for hours that day. The next week, Marcus had started teaching again, running a GED prep course in the prison library. He dedicated every class to Walter's daughter. The kindness spread like ripples in water. Walter helped Raymond Pops Williams write letters to his grandchildren. Pops couldn't read well, but he could pour his heart out to Walter, who'd write the words down in careful script. He listened to Jorge Martinez talk about his mother dying alone while he was locked up, offering no judgment, only presence. He taught Carlos Bennett to play chess, giving the hot-tempered young man a way to channel his aggression into strategy. Even the guards noticed. Officer Patricia Chen, a 20-year veteran who'd seen everything, found herself softening around Walter. When he'd asked politely if he could have an extra blanket because his arthritis flared up in the cold cell, she'd brought him two. "Don't make me regret this, Hayes," she'd said gruffly. "No, ma'am," he'd replied with a gentle smile. "Thank you for your kindness." Kindness. The word felt foreign in Millbrook, yet Walter used it freely, genuinely. But not everyone appreciated kindness. Vince Caruso had arrived at Millbrook 3 months into Walter's sentence. 6'4", 260 pounds of prison-hardened muscle, Vince was serving his 3rd stint, this time for armed robbery and aggravated assault. He'd done time in maximum security before, and Millbrook was his kingdom the moment he arrived. Vince ruled through fear. He extorted commissary items, controlled gambling debts, and enjoyed making smaller, weaker inmates suffer. It was sport to him. He'd noticed Walter immediately. An easy target, defenseless, the kind of victim who made Vince feel powerful. The first time, Vince had simply taken Walter's lunch tray, dumping it into the trash while Walter stood holding his empty hands. "You don't need it, old man. You're gonna die soon anyway." Walter had walked away quietly, eating crackers from his cell that night. The second time, Vince had tripped Walter in the yard, sending him sprawling onto the concrete. Walter's hands had scraped raw, blood seeping through the wrinkled skin. Tommy had started to move forward, but Walter had shaken his head slightly. "Don't," Walter had whispered. "He's not worth the time they'll add to your sentence." But Vince had gotten bolder. He'd started following Walter, cornering him in the shower room, the library, anywhere guards weren't watching. He'd push Walter against walls, speak threats into his ear, enjoy watching the old man flinch. "You scared of me?" Vince would ask, grinning. "You should be." The other inmates watched, anger building. Marcus, Pops, George, Carlos. They'd all approached Walter separately, offering to handle Vince. "He's gonna hurt you bad one day," Tommy had warned. "Let us take care of it." But Walter had refused every time. Violence only breeds more violence. "I didn't come here to make anyone's sentence longer, especially not people who've shown me such kindness." "But what about you?" Marcus had asked, frustrated. "I'm an old man," Walter had said softly. "What's he gonna do, kill me? I was going to die in here anyway. But you still have futures. Don't throw them away on my account." His selflessness had only made them respect him more, and resent Vince with a burning intensity. Now, in this hallway with Vince closing in, Walter realized his philosophy of peace might cost him everything. His legs gave out, and he fell to one knee, gasping. The medication bottles scattered across the floor, rolling in different directions. Vince's massive hand grabbed Walter's collar, lifting him partly off the ground. The fabric cut into Walter's neck. He couldn't breathe. Vince's face was inches away, smelling of cigarettes and rage. "Thought you could hide from me?" Vince snarled. "Thought your little friends would protect you?" Walter's vision started to blur. He thought of his daughter, hoped she'd somehow forgiven him, hoped. "Put him down." The voice was calm but carried absolute authority. Tommy Rodriguez stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed. He wasn't alone. Marcus emerged from a cell doorway, stepping into the corridor, then Pops from another. Jorge from the stairwell, Carlos from the bathroom entrance. Within seconds, 15 men had materialized, forming a semicircle around Vince and Walter. No weapons, no shouting, just presence. Vince's grip loosened slightly. His eyes darted around, calculating odds he didn't like. "This ain't your business," he tried, but his voice had lost its edge. "That's where you're wrong," Marcus said, moving closer. "Walter is our business. He's our friend, our brother." "He's a weak old man." Vince spat. "What's he ever done for you?" Tommy stepped forward, and for the first time, Vince saw something in the smaller man's eyes that made him reconsider everything. It wasn't anger, it was conviction. "He listened to me cry at night and never told anyone," Tommy said quietly. "He gave me his food when I was hungry. He treated me like a human being when everyone else saw a criminal. He helped me remember why I love teaching," Marcus added. "Gave me a reason to get up every day. He wrote letters to my grandkids," Pop said, his voice thick with emotion. "Made them feel loved when their grandpa couldn't be there." One by one they spoke, each testimony a thread, weaving together a tapestry of small kindnesses that had transformed lives in imperceptible but profound ways. Vince's hand fell away from Walter's collar. The old man collapsed to his knees, coughing, tears streaming down his face, not from pain, but from overwhelming gratitude. "You don't understand," Vince said, and for a moment, something vulnerable flashed across his face. "In here, if you're weak, you get crushed. That's the rule. That's survival." "No," Walter rasped, his voice barely audible. He looked up at Vince with those sad, kind eyes. "That's fear. There's a difference." The hallway fell silent except for Walter's labored breathing. Tommy helped Walter to his feet, gathering the scattered medication bottles. The circle of men remained, not threatening, just present, a wall of solidarity built from kindness received and returned. Vince stood frozen, trapped not by violence but by something he didn't understand. All his life, power had come from fists and fear. Now he faced a different kind of power, one that couldn't be beaten or intimidated. Officer Chen's voice cracked over the hallway speaker. "All inmates return to cells. Count time in 5 minutes." The men began to disperse slowly, each one touching Walter's shoulder as they passed. A brief connection, a silent promise. Tommy stayed, supporting Walter's weight. As Vince turned to leave, Walter called out, "Wait." Everyone froze. Walter straightened as much as his arthritic spine would allow and looked at his tormentor. "Vince, I forgive you." The words hung in the air like a benediction. Vince's face contorted, confusion, rage, something that might have been shame. "I don't need your forgiveness, old man." "Maybe not," Walter said gently. "But I'm giving it anyway, because holding on to hate in here, it'll kill you faster than any sentence." Vince opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away quickly, his heavy boots echoing down the empty corridor. 3 months later, something remarkable happened in Millbrook Correctional Facility's D Block. Vince Caruso signed up for Marcus Johnson's GED prep course. He sat in the back, silent, but he showed up, every single class. One day, after everyone else had left, Vince approached Marcus with a request. Could you teach me to write a letter? To my daughter. Haven't seen her since she was 6. She's 13 now." Marcus had looked at the massive man, seeing him clearly for the first time. "Yeah, brother, I can teach you that." Later, when Marcus told Walter about Vince's request, the old man had smiled, that same gentle, knowing smile that had touched so many lives. "Maybe he's ready to learn," Walter said. "Learn what?" "That we're all just broken people trying to survive, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let others help you." In the yard that afternoon, Walter sat on his usual bench, the autumn sun warming his weathered face. Tommy sat beside him, teaching him Spanish phrases. Marcus joined them, bringing the crossword puzzle from the newspaper. Pops arrived with chess pieces he'd carved from soap. Jorge brought stories from his mother's letters, finally arriving after months of silence. Carlos brought laughter, impersonating the guards with spot-on accuracy. Vince watched from across the yard, standing alone as always, but this time, Walter caught his eye and nodded toward the empty space on the bench. An invitation. Vince hesitated, decades of survival instincts screaming at him to walk away, to maintain the armor that had kept him alive, but utterly alone. Then, slowly, he crossed the yard. As he approached, Tommy tensed, but Walter put a gentle hand on his arm. "It's all right," Walter said softly. Vince stood awkwardly at the edge of the group, uncertain. Walter patted the bench beside him. "Sit down, son. Tell us about your daughter. What's her name?" Vince's eyes glistened as he lowered himself onto the bench, this mountain of a man suddenly looking small and lost. "Emily," he whispered. "Her name is Emily." "That's a beautiful name," Walter said. "Tell us about her." And in that moment, in a prison yard in upstate New York, surrounded by men society had discarded, something miraculous happened. Vince Caruso began to cry, deep, wrenching sobs that shook his entire body. Tommy didn't look away. Marcus put a hand on Vince's shoulder. Pops nodded with understanding. Jorge and Carlos sat quietly, bearing witness. And Walter, a 70-year-old man serving 15 years for a crime born of desperate love, did what he'd always done. He listened. He stayed present. He offered kindness. Officer Chen watched from her post, pretending not to see the tears, the human connection, the impossible transformation happening on that bench. She'd seen a lot in 20 years, but this was something different. Later, she'd write in her report, "D Block remains stable. Inmate Hayes continues to be a positive influence on the prison population. Recommend no changes to current housing assignments." What she didn't write, what she couldn't quite put into words, was that she'd witnessed the rarest thing in any prison. Not an escape from walls and bars, but an escape from something far more confining. The prison of hatred, violence, and isolation that trapped men long before they ever arrived at Millbrook. Walter Hayes would serve 8 years of his sentence before dying peacefully in the prison infirmary, surrounded by Tommy, Marcus, Pops, Jorge, Carlos, and yes, even Vince. They held his hands as he passed. These men he'd transformed not through preaching or judgment, but through simple, radical kindness. At his memorial service in the prison chapel, an event attended by more than 200 inmates, Vince Caruso stood and spoke, tears streaming down his scarred face. "I was the meanest man in here," he said, his voice breaking. "And Walter forgave me. He showed me that strength isn't about hurting people. Real strength is about lifting them up. I'm not the man I was. Because of him, I wrote to my daughter. We've been talking. She's coming to visit next month. First time in 7 years. Walter gave me that. He gave me back my daughter." The chapel was silent, except for the sound of grown men crying. Tommy spoke next, then Marcus, then dozens of others. Each had a story. Each had been touched. Each had been transformed. Officer Chen, standing in the back, wiped her eyes and thought about all the inmates who'd shown behavioral improvements over the past year. 15 men had enrolled in education programs. 23 had reconnected with estranged family members. Violence in D Block had dropped 40%. All because one old man chose kindness over bitterness, chose forgiveness over revenge, chose love over hate. In a place designed for punishment, Walter Hayes had built a community of grace, and his legacy lived on in every inmate who'd learned that sometimes the most revolutionary act in a world of violence is simple, stubborn, relentless kindness. Thank you for reading this story from Behind Bars Tales. If these stories of redemption and humanity behind prison walls moved you, please subscribe to our channel. Share these stories. Remember that every person, regardless of their past, has the capacity for change, and sometimes all they need is someone to believe in them first. Subscribe now for more powerful true stories from Behind Bars.